I think songwriting is incredibly undervalued. I know songwriters that get paid little to nothing on hits, and the producer on the track is like raking it in. And so I think there's definitely a fairness conversation that has been happening, I will say, in the last few years. Things are shifting a little bit. We know a lot of songwriters now that charge a fee, and I'm like, good for you. Get your bag. We are in a different position because we're the artists, producers, and songwriters. And so we're kind of like on every angle of the project. But if I was out in the wild, part of a publishing company, and I'm just a songwriter going from session to session, I would want to know that if the song that I helped write and make a hit was picked up, then I would get paid in a way that was more fair, maybe.
What's going on? Welcome to The New Music Business. I'm your host, Ari Herstand, author of How to Make It in the New Music Business. The book, 3rd edition, is out now everywhere. Hardcover, ebook, audiobook, however you like books, you can find the book. Today, my guests are Yasmine and Jahan Yousaf from the group Krewella. Krewella, if you're familiar at all with the EDM scene, you know Krewella. They are icons from the early 2010s. They came out in 2011. They now have billions of streams, a dedicated fan base. They were some of the first women actually to reach major music milestones during the early days of the EDM scene. And in 2016, they made the Forbes 30 under 30 list. They were signed to a major label, Columbia, for about 5 years or so. They've now been fully independent for the last few albums, and they just released a new single, Crying on the Dancefloor, which is the start of some new music that they're putting out after a few-year hiatus of releasing music. They've also played festivals like Coachella and Lollapalooza, EDC, Ultra, iHeartRadio Music Festival, Tomorrowland, and then other various festivals all over the world, in China and India, Pakistan, all over Europe, everything, and not to mention their own headlining tours and Las Vegas residencies. This was a really insightful interview. I really loved chatting with both of them. They were very open about all things. We talk about the creation process of their music, how that's evolved, how they're using new tools. We, of course, talk about AI, what AI tools that they're dabbling with and what they're using. But we also talk about the business, and we spent a good amount of time talking about the business and collaboration and, royalties and producers versus songwriters and how all that works. We talk about how, because they came out in 2011, 2012 or so, pre all of the things that we're so familiar with, like streaming and TikTok and Instagram and all that stuff, and how they have evolved and grown their fan base in this new reality, this new music business. And they're very open about the paradox that we're in right now as an industry, as every artist deals with, of growing your audience, bringing in new fans and the methods of doing that versus deepening the relationship with your existing fans. And they are thinking about both on a daily basis. And this is something that even they're battling with and trying to figure out. And we talk about comparison, of course, and just the spiritual component, the human component of being an artist and all the realities of that in this new music industry. This was a really wonderful interview. I really appreciated how open they were with this. You can find Krewella everywhere. Go listen to their new song. Go listen to all their new music that they're putting out right now, and find them on all the socials, on streaming platforms, on all of that good stuff. Krewella, that's Krewella if you are unfamiliar. Find all of us that make the show happen at Ari's Take on the socials. You can find me at Ari Herstand on Instagram. But right now, if you wouldn't mind, just pause this, leave us a 5-star review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, give us a thumbs up on YouTube, hit the follow button, hit the subscribe button, however you're listening to this, and then head over to aristake.com and get on our email list. That's the best way to stay in touch with us, is on the email list. All right, let's kick into the show. Yasmine, Jahan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us, Ari.
Hey. So, first off, congratulations on the new single, Crying on the Dancefloor. I guess it's not like super, super new at this point, but it's how does it feel to kind of have this new song out in the world after, you know, taking a little step away from music that has kind of defined your adulthood and adult life for so much, and now it's back. Now you're back.
I feel really proud to know it's floating out in the world and seeping into people's ears. Yasmine, I've kind of moved on to what's next already, so sometimes I kind of forget it's out.
Right.
Because we're already thinking about finishing up the next songs. But it's a good feeling to know that we did our best and truly took it to the highest level we possibly could with our perfectionism and our tweaks. And and that doesn't always happen as an artist, where you put something out and you're just like, I wish we'd done something differently.
Yeah.
So I feel at peace with knowing the state it's in. And it was really exciting to see in Europe. We had a couple shows where fans were really reacting to it in the club. So that
makes it real when you finally can see the reaction to something new in person, IRL, right? Well, the process, so working on these new songs, and I'm assuming, hoping, guessing that this is kind of the start of a new, like a new album, a new maybe bit of work that you're going to be releasing. But was there a difference in the process this time around and kind of the creation of this and maybe the intention around this song and the new songs that you're working on versus how you've worked in the past?
I think this process feels like an evolution of where we've been before, but it feels so much less rushed. I feel like we've been taking our time with things in a way that we may have never allowed ourselves to in our entire career. I think taking outwardly, it was a 3-year hiatus, but for us, it was 2 years. And then we picked back up after 2 years to start working on music again. It really changed time for us. It made us feel less just like urgent about pretty much the creation process and feeling like we had to do something by X date or else something will expire. That feeling of urgency is kind of not in us anymore, and we're taking our time with things, and it's really, really nice. It gives us the space to be even more of a perfectionist, because we both
for better
are,
or
which
worse.
might not be exactly for better or for worse, but I'm actually really enjoying it. Nice.
Well, that, I mean, talk to me about the team around you at this point, because I know in the past, like early on, you know, you had worked with a major label, I believe it was Columbia, for Get Wet, and that's like coming out of the gates after releasing an independent EP, so young, kind of probably figuring it out, not really knowing what's happening, and then a major label comes into the picture. There's this whole machinery going on, and I'm sure you felt like through those first few years, the machine, maybe you're just on a ride, maybe on a roller coaster for a bit. Now, as you've grown and you've now been through so much and you're independent, at this moment in time, now kind of even having to step away a little bit and having some maybe wiser perspectives on everything with taking a little bit of a break. Tell me about what kind of infrastructure that you have put together for this next phase.
That's such a good question, because I actually read, it was a Medium article the other day on independent artists. And I think about 40% of the artists who are releasing on Spotify are independent. We should fact check that later.
Well, no, I know what you're citing, and it is around 40%. It's actually revenue, because it's probably 99.99% of all artists releasing on Spotify are independent, because of like there's 100,000 songs uploaded a day to Spotify, and the vast majority are just, you know, self-releasing artists. But what you're referencing, which is true, is around, it's like 35 to 40% of all the revenue that's made from streaming. The global music revenue is actually going to independent artists, not major label artists. And so there's a much wider market share of the global music recorded revenue going to indies, which never was the case even 20 years ago. So that is, yeah, absolutely.
When you say it wasn't the case 20 years ago, like what was different about it then? I mean, obviously we didn't have streaming.
We didn't have streaming, right? And just the infrastructure and this, like the ways to reach the audience, distribution. When you had to manufacture, I mean, we remember the days of printing CDs and getting CDs made in hand and whatever. But like even the distribution of those CDs to record stores and all of that, and so you could actually gain some market share in the revenue. The major label had that infrastructure on lock, and then when it was required for physical distribution, that was so cost prohibitive, not to mention just like the cost of printing and all of that. That's why one of the big reasons, but also like the majors kind of just controlled everything at the time. And so they had, I think it was like maybe 30 years ago, it was like 90% or over 90% of the global recorded music market share. And now we're at almost 40%. And so
Amazing.
it is, because, I guess some people call it the democratization, all of that. But with the internet and making things a lot cheaper for just anybody to kind of put their music out, for better or worse, there's a lot more noise out there now, and there's a lot more, everything. But at the same time, there is a way for indies to make it work without the machine.
I'm so glad you had a deeper understanding of the statistic. I thought you guys.
Yeah. No, but you're great. Yeah, you're right on. Yeah, for sure.
But I think where I was going with that is we're living in a time where there's less gatekeeping compared to when we started out. And I think that's very empowering for the bedroom producer, or anyone who can release anything on a DSP, on YouTube, on SoundCloud, on Spotify. As far as our team goes, we've really curated a team that, and we're still figuring that out as we go, as we finish this next body of work. So we have our management. I'll start with the creative. It's Yasmine and I producing and writing. We bring in homies sometimes for different songs, for playing guitar work, helping us with chords, mixing, mastering. Those are other roles for the creative process. We'll most likely bring back in a creative director when we get into this album cycle. And this is all us, Yasmine and I, investing in ourselves. And we're really fortunate to be in a position where we can do that. PR, so that's another service that you can hire as an independent artist. Management, obviously, legal, business management. So there's a huge machine, or I don't even want to call it machine because we're indie and it feels like these are very dear, close friends of ours who we're working with. But I would say support team and a family. So we're kind of curating that family and that team to help support our music.
And do you have a distributor or a label, or who are you kind of working to put the music out?
We've been with Ingrooves for, I would say, almost 7 years
the distributor,
now. And that's in the process. What's next for us with that? But all in all, I would say we're still in a very creatively empowered position where there's no one influencing us or telling us who we should be or what type of music we should make or how we should be presenting ourselves to the world, how we should dress, what our image should be. It really is Yasmine and I who are at the helm of that. Yeah.
Referencing that, I'm assuming that's how it felt when you were with the major, that there were a lot of people telling you kind of what you should be doing, how you should be looking, all of that. Have you experienced that since, outside the major label system, or is that kind of a byproduct of being part of that industry? I almost look at it as like two separate industries. It's like you have the indie industry where you're controlling everything, but then you have the responsibility of controlling everything and like figuring it all out. Or you have the major label system where there's a lot of people and you have less control, but at the same time you have a lot more support theoretically.
They are two different beasts. In my opinion, I think that being independent was the best decision for us, but it does come with a heavy responsibility. I think you pay for the freedom, right? It's like, I wouldn't trade that for anything, but every artist wants a different experience. I think it was a beautiful experience to also be on the majors between 2012 and Jahan 2017. Am I right about that? It was about a 5-year run with Columbia, and I think we learned so much. I think we were still able to be ourselves, but there was a bit of that major label imprinting happening. You can't avoid it. We had an incredible team that was really invested in us and had their own ideas and thoughts of what they wanted for us. But I think it really is the greatest decision we probably have made in our entire careers to go independent. But it is also a privileged position to be able to self-fund your project. I don't know if everybody would want this for themselves, but we've chosen it and we feel really good about it.
Yeah, I mean, self-funding, that is, like you said, Yasmine, a privilege. And most indie artists that are starting out today, you know, don't have that kind of budget to be able to put this team together that you've assembled, and just kind of create the music, or maybe go on tour, or hire a creative director to kind of help with all of that. But you also mentioned kind of the gatekeepers, Jahan, earlier, about the, you know, there's not as many gatekeepers now. I'm curious your perspective now, where you kind of rose in this industry, pre-streaming, you know, pre-Instagram, pre-TikTok, you know, I mean, there was YouTube. It was pretty solid then, but it was still in its early stages. And, you know, where was that? We're at this tipping point. And then like now seeing where we're at now, with like TikTok dominating and Spotify dominating and all of that, do you see that the approach for your new music is you have to rethink everything that maybe you once knew, or the way you approached it earlier? And are you trying to keep up with what everyone is kind of pushing of how artists are supposed to operate in this day and age? Or do you feel it because you've built up this strong, solid foundation with such a strong fan base that you don't have to chase the trends or the algorithm as much, and you are able to maybe step outside this spinning rat race that so many of these newer, younger artists are in on TikTok?
Oh, that's such a good question, because we talk about this a lot. Because I think there's this question for so many artists where it's like, how do we cut through the noise? Because there is so much saturation. And once again, that's a beautiful thing, because so many people have access to a platform to share their voice and release their music and to market themselves. I think what worked for us in the past was amazing. It helped us build the foundation. Like, we would be in line, you know, half asleep to board a plane, responding all of our Twitter messages and Facebook messages, and keeping up with fans as much as we could, and posting and responding. And it was exciting for us to be in touch like that. But I think as Yasmine and I evolved, we found that sort of being that engaged online all the time wasn't sustainable for us energetically. So we're really grateful we did it at that point in time to like really build our fan base and tour like crazy to connect with as many fans as we could and meet them and do as many meet and greets as we could, playing 3 shows in one night. So that worked for us at that point in time. At this point in time, Yasmine and I we're in this dance where we're like, how do we do this now while maintaining our mental sanity and having balance, and being aware of what's working and what the trends are, but not chasing it, because that also is exhausting. Yasmine, you can probably add more to this since it's such a fresh conversation for us.
Yeah, Ari, we literally talk about this weekly. So
great. Perfect.
It's so relevant for us. I think it is such a push and pull. We're constantly trying to figure out how we can put our foot into the door of the new ways of marketing ourselves that everyone is taking part in, without, like Jahan said, draining ourselves energetically, because the truth is the music comes first for us always. It always has, it always will. What I want to spend my time doing is being in the studio making music and tinkering and playing and being creative. With that being said, I do understand how important it is to be a part of the current landscape and structure of what's going on. So it's a dance. We haven't figured it out yet, though, Ari. We really haven't. We're like constantly trying to.
You want to know the dirty little secret is that no one has figured it out. And even people that pretend that they figured it out, they don't know. I mean, we're up against the algorithm, which is frankly out of control right now. No one's controlling it. It's got a brain of its own. But I feel that, and that makes perfect sense. I'm curious because, there's this there's kind of this dual approach right now for artists that are operating in this day and age, where there's, on one hand, you want to grow your audience, and that, like, TikTok is really good at that. And it's like the algorithm, you can have a reach, and you can have very few followers, and just like we see the virality is crazy, like it's never been before. Mm-hmm. And then on the other hand, it's about engaging your existing fan base and deepening that relationship. And social media at this day and age maybe isn't the best at that, because social media has evolved into like interest media. It's no longer social media. It's not like you're seeing in your feed just your friends who you follow, or artists you follow, or anything like that. The algorithm is just sending you what it thinks you will like. And so all your fans that maybe want to see your content might not see it when you post it, because the algorithm isn't feeding it to your followers. So I'm curious, in balancing that, do you feel the pressure to grow the audience, to bring in new fans, and versus deepening your relationship with your existing fans and just kind of moving forward with this strong foundational base that you've established now over the last 12 years or so?
I think both are possible.
Yep.
I love paradoxes. I don't know if this is a paradox, but I love like conflicting things that are happening at the same time. Yasmine and I talk a lot about how we feel a detachment in some way. Like, I feel detached from my old self that was like, we need to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and like more people need to hear us, and that intense need to be seen by more and more and more people, and to grow more and more.
Right.
So I feel detached from that version of myself, and I feel like such a deep gratitude for, with less effort over the years of trying so hard to get people to hear us and see us, how there has been some sort of stable fan base there. And like, so happy when we play these clubs that are like 300 cap clubs or smaller, or side stages. When we played Tomorrowland, Brazil, we saw the main stage, and it was so over the top and opulent and beautiful and just massive. And we pulled up to our cute little like side stage in the corner with like very minimal production. And I was just so happy with that. And I was so happy for the fans that showed up. So it's kind of freeing being this place where it'd be like, yeah, it would be a fun experiment if we can like reach more people. That would be amazing. And I know our team wants that for us. Right. But not feeling like I need that to feel worthy and valuable as an artist. Yes, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that too.
Please.
I mean, all I can add to this is that there's this saying that's kind of been floating around with us for about 2 years now, of satisfied but eager for more. And that's kind of how I feel about life in general. I know there's more untapped stuff for us to experience and untapped people to reach. And I know that will happen. I actually have a lot of faith in, especially the upcoming music. We're so excited about it. Whether that's like 10 people or 10,000, I have no idea. And I also feel quite detached from it. As long as we are creating music that feels really genuine to us and authentic to our journey, then that's good enough for me. And again, I know this sounds so privileged, because we are in a very specific situation that we are somehow cosmically allowed to just do whatever feels good for us. And it's been working. And I know that's not everybody's story, but that's how it feels for us. And I'm just going to keep riding that until the wheels fall off.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And I love that, satisfied but eager for more, because it is so personal. The level of success, or at least the definition of what success is. And, one could be at Tomorrowland and look at the main stage and have a yearning or feel, like envy or something like that. It's like, oh man, I should be there. And I like, what happened? Or I'm going to get there, or that's my goal, or whatever. And then there's also some serenity and peace and saying, and existing in the present, be like, I am here and this is beautiful. And like, these people are here for me and for us. And but you know, we are bombarded by comparison. I mean, the first thing that you see when you go on any of these platforms are numbers, and the numbers, it's like, it strips away the humanity. It strips away the creativity, the art from it all. And it just like throws numbers at us. And so it's impossible not to compare. And, you know, like sifting through all of that to try to like get to the fans and to the people and to the music and to the art to reach that. I mean, that's hard for anyone, no matter what stage you're at, whether you're just starting or whether you know, established decades and decades into this. It's like those pressures are real. So yes, I mean, you have, you know, established yourself to a place where you're comfortable, and that's a beautiful thing. And you've laid a very strong foundation. But I can also understand, I mean, it's like you're only human as well. And that's like, there are those pressures out there. And so I'm also curious, like, if you're feeling that, and if not, what has helped you kind of get away from the comparison or the jealousy or the envy or the yearning, or just where you're at, I guess, now entering this new cycle, this new phase, and how you're going to approach all of this?
By the way, I do want to say that just because we feel comfortable and great here doesn't mean we aren't hungry. But on to what you're
Sure.
saying, I think that a huge part of our journey was our hiatus of our recent journey. I think that has been humbling. It's also, I remember leaving our last tour in 2022 and thinking I might never play another show again.
Wow.
And that wasn't from a place of not wanting to. It was
Sure.
a combination of like maybe burnout, and then I don't know when this hiatus is going to end. It's indefinite.
Okay.
It might be forever.
Yeah.
And so I think even having the opportunity to come back with passion, I mean, getting back in the studio and actually feeling excited to make music again after 2 years of literally not even opening Ableton. I had to relearn so much, which was so much fun for me. It was scary. It gave me feelings that I hadn't felt in over a decade, which was very illuminating in my human experience of generally just like, oh, you really can't do the same thing every day and feel a 10 about it. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
not normal to do that and expect that of yourself. So I think the
Sure.
oscillation of our journey has just been really humbling. And I don't know, I think trying so many different things in our career has also been really humbling because we've been through so many phases. We've been through the major label phase. We went through a phase where we were touring with a live, like technically a live rock band. I mean, we've done so many things, and I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
We've even played the main stage at Tomorrowland. Like we've done
Yeah.
so many things, and I think that's what's given us permission to step back and be like, oh, look at all these things we did. That's really cool. We deserve a break. We deserve to reignite our fire for something that I would think as a fan, I would want an artist to love what they do. I mean, they're
Yeah.
in such a privileged position. I would hate to think that the person up there on main stage Tomorrowland is just kind of going through the motions. I wouldn't want to experience that as a fan, and I don't want to experience that as an artist. And so I think that's kind of, does that sum it up, John? Is there anything else, please?
I mean, there's so much to talk about this, because when you brought up comparison and seeing other artists who are relevant or have high engagement, who have so much output where it feels like every 3 months or more often they're releasing a new song or new body of work every year or posting every day. I also want to reiterate, you know, I don't want to paint this picture that we're totally detached and unaffected, because 2 days ago, I probably had that feeling of like, oh my God, that artist is doing so much. Like, how do they do it? You know, like, how are they like always churning out music and posting? But I think, you know, a lot of this time that Yasmine and I have taken, we've just been doing a lot of work on ourselves. And I think having the self-awareness of the voices in your head helps you separate from that part of you that is feeling like, oh, I'm not enough. I'm that artist that like goes away for too long and can't come back and takes too long to record an album. And I'm doing like a funny voice while I'm doing that because it's a character in me.
Yeah,
So I
sure.
think being able to like, reason with ourselves in those moments and, in those moments where I am feeling not enough, which is often, because we're sensitive and we all have those human emotions. It's like giving myself a supportive script. Like, and what I told myself the other day is like, Yasmine and I are doing it our way. Other artists have their own way. And like, this is our unique way. There's no one way. Like someone might tell you, you have to post every 3 days on TikTok, or you have to be in the studio 5 days a week. Yasmine and I are figuring out our unique way. And that's always evolving. Because I think sometimes when you look at how other people have paved the way, or like you sit down at your desk at sunrise and you get to work, and we think that's the only way to be successful. So
yeah. No, I love that. No, that makes a lot of sense. You can only do it your way. It's like everyone is going to do it in the way that makes sense for them, and everyone has unique circumstances and positions and realities in their own lives. And finding what makes sense for you. That's great. I want to talk about the music and the creation process a little bit. In terms of, I mean, you said like, some people feel pressure to be in the studio every day. When you're creating, in general, and maybe if this new album or these new batch of songs is different, but I'm curious, like, how much do you create that actually the world sees, you feel good enough to release, and how much lives on a hard drive somewhere? And do you know when you're working on it if this is going to be a song that you're going to feel comfortable putting out? Yasmine, you're laughing. Yes, please.
Oh,
Give it to me.
I'm laughing because I'm thinking of a very specific scenario that's happened in the last, I would say, 6 months.
Okay.
We had a song that was ready to be mixed. The STEM session is ready. I have the premix ready. We send it to our team. We're like, this one's ready. And then as soon as I press send on that text to my team, I have a gut feeling where I'm like, oh, no. I don't feel good about this. And we have just spent, like, if you see the hard drive, this is the song that has like 50 different versions of it.
Oh, wow.
And so we've been beating this song like a dead horse.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until sending it to the team where I realized, oh my God, okay, it's actually back to square one. And I haven't reopened the session since. Jahan, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But there are so many times where a song needs to go through a death and a rebirth like 16 times. And so therefore, there is so much people don't hear. It's funny. Our most recent release, Crying on the Dancefloor, was probably the most smooth process ever. We wrote and recorded final vocals pretty much entirely in one single day, and then only had maybe 2 or 3 weeks of production sessions, Jahan and I just tweaking things, taking it to the final steps, and then on to mixing. It was done within like 4 to 5 weeks turnaround. That's not normal. So every song is different. That is one of the few songs I can think of that was very simple and straightforward. But most people, I mean, if you're thinking about what you actually hear of Krewella's final product versus what is under the surface, like the iceberg, the tip of the iceberg versus what's under the water, there's so much. There's so much. It sometimes pains me a little bit because I think about the hours, days, months of my life, but it's all worth the final product.
Do you ever revisit those old songs, or do you ever, like, in the middle of the night think about, man, we did something like 7 years ago, and go digging for that? And it's like, what is it? Yeah.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah, we do. We definitely do. Our next single is a song that we wrote and started writing in 2018.
Wow.
And then we picked it back up last year, 6 years later. So yeah, we do that a lot, actually.
It's like an ex from the past, and you just had to go through your own spiritual
Yeah.
I always love stories like that. Hearing that about other artists too, because it gives me this faith in the creative process. Because I think sometimes we get discouraged when we are halfway through writing a song or get the production to 40% maybe, and then can't figure out how to crack the code. And then, we sometimes get discouraged as artists if like a couple years go by and we're like, you think of ourselves or that song as a failure. But I think Yasmine, I know that some songs, if they're meant to be, they'll reach the surface.
Yeah, definitely. In terms of the collaborators you work with, how do you decide who to bring in, and what is the process like? Is it usually, do you start the two of you in the studio together working stuff out, or do you always bring in a collaborator, whether like a producer or co-writer or something like that, to start the session with? And yeah, tell me about collaborators.
Our process is ever changing.
Okay.
There was a time where we started things with collaborators all the time, and then COVID happened and we couldn't really see anybody but each other. So we completely flip-flopped and started everything together. And if we wanted to bring in other people, it happened after the fact. Most of the stuff we do now is just Jahan and I, but we have a list of collaborations that are in the works. And so if we're working with on a collab with someone, that's something that we start an idea for. And sometimes it's an idea we didn't even think would be a collab. There's a song we're working on right now that's, I would say, 80% finished. But we just had the thought the other day, we were like, this would be a great collab with XYZ. And so now we're going to just send it over, and it might have a facelift as we work with this collaborator and sound completely different from what the 80% it's at right now is. But it is every song is a different process.
My favorite is so Yasmine and I, neither of us are classically trained. So everything, like the chords we're building, the bass lines, is all of us intuitively, like Yasmine's drawing in MIDI and we're like, that note, maybe that's the third note in the chord. Everything is based on what it feels like to us. So I love bringing in someone like Cody Tarpley, who we've collaborated with a bunch, and we worked on Crying on the Dance Floor with him. He just creates these magical, unexpected chords, like the guitar he played on that song, chords that are so unexpected that I wouldn't think of. So those are some of my favorites, people who can really bring in these notes and chords and, to help frame our songwriting.
Yeah, love that. Yeah, I noticed on Crying on the Dance Floor that Cody is listed as a co-producer with the two of you. I'm curious, what is a producer to you both?
Such a good question. Cody is one of the best producers I know in general. One of the best vocal engineers, producers, mixing engineers. He has been a collaborator in so many different senses. So a producer can be someone who sits in the session and just writes an amazing guitar part, like Cody was for Crying on the Dance Floor. Or a producer can be someone who doesn't even touch an instrument or the computer and is kind of being like, I have an idea, can you try this? Like a Rick Rubin style.
Like a Rick Rubin, right.
Or you can be a full-on, I'm a producer in all these senses, plus I'm an engineer and I'm engineering something and I'm in the computer. I don't know. I think the word producer gets very convoluted in the eyes of a fan, and they want to almost feel like someone does everything in order for them to feel like a producer or that they have their respect. But I have this conversation with so many musician friends. Nobody does anything alone. And maybe you start that way. I know a lot of bedroom producers are doing everything alone, but eventually collaboration is the backbone of every song, every album, everything. It really is. I'm neither of Jahan and I are mixing engineers. I will never ever mix any of our stuff myself. Jahan won't either. I'm always going to bring someone in to mix our stuff. That's a producer in a sense too, mixing engineer. But I look at that a producer as well. So lots of different facets here. Everyone sees it differently. How do you feel, Jay?
Yeah, I would say I agree. There's a producer can be in the computer. A producer can also be in the passenger seat, directing in a way. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Now, when it comes to the business of it all, the labels unfortunately do matter. And there's a huge difference between producer and songwriter. Yes. And when you're thinking about that and who's getting some publishing versus who might get some points on the master and how all that is split up, how does that work, and how does that work, I guess, for your operation, and has that changed over the years? And yeah, how do you set that business relationships up like that?
We haven't worked with outside songwriters in so long, but
Mm,
if I could go back and do it again, I'm starting to see the business differently. I think songwriting is so important. Jahan and I are songwriters. How could I ever discount what we do, a part of what we
mhm.
do? I think songwriting is incredibly undervalued, incredibly undervalued. I know songwriters that get paid little to nothing on hits. You know, like they wrote a
Yeah.
fucking hit and they're getting paid little to nothing. And the producer on the track or one of the producers on the track is like raking it in. And so I think there's definitely a fairness conversation that has been
Yes.
happening, I will say, in the last few years. Things are
Hmm.
shifting a little bit. We know a lot of songwriters now that charge a fee, and I'm like, good for you. Like
Hmm.
get your bag.
Yeah.
So I think there's a conversation that's started to happen, but needs to be happening a little bit more seriously. We are in a different position because we're the artists, producers, and songwriters. And
Right.
so we're kind of like on every angle of the project. But if I was out in the wild, just like part of a publishing company and I'm just a songwriter going from session to session, I would want to know that if the song that I helped write and make a hit was picked up, then I would get paid in a way that was more fair, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's starting to happen where songwriters are now asking / demanding the points on the master like producers have gotten. Because
Yes.
for people listening that aren't familiar with this business situation, how this is broken down, about 80% of the money that comes from streaming goes to the master rights holders and the master sound recording royalties. So that's for the artist, the label, and the producer that's typically getting points on the master. The 20% of streaming is what's going to the songwriters. And so it's such a smaller part. And really the songwriters, Yasmine, that you're referencing that like write hits, the only real way they're making money is like if those songs get on the radio and they're earning performance royalties, which go to those songwriters. And if you just have a cut on the record or on the full album and it's like not going to radio, those songwriters are making virtually nothing from that. So to even out the scales a little bit, some songwriters are starting to get points on the master, which has never really happened historically. But I think it, yeah, like you said, is much more fair and should be a practice that is more widely done.
Ari, I have a
Um,
question for you.
yeah.
I feel like, especially in the EDM space, you know, we hear the concept of people saying like, oh, that DJ uses a ghost producer. Like, why don't we ever hear someone say, who's the ghost singer on that massive EDM hit? Because so many of our favorite songs are sung and recorded by artists, these songs that become hit songs, and there's no crediting on there. And it's just
That's wild to me. Yeah.
value more.
And I mean, yeah, for the singers too. And that's because, right, some of these singers are just maybe getting a flat rate to do the session or something like that. And they never get anything after the fact. I mean, hell, some of these singers on some of these tracks these days are just Splice samples.
Yeah.
So like, I literally like a young nephew of mine, he's 17. He just like sent me his first track and he like made this tune. I'm like, this is great. And like, he produced it and did the whole thing. And, I was like, who's this singer? She's great. He's like, I don't know. It's just some Splice sample I found. I'm like, oh, no. Like,
Wow.
That's the era. That's like the reality we're in. And so it's just, and I mean, not to even mention AI and how all that like is, starting, the implications of that. But it's real when it's like, where are we placing value? I think is really what it's coming down to. And it's just like, are these DJs, producers, how much value are they placing on the singers that they're bringing in, or the collaborators or the producers, and just how all that works out? And sure, there's like a book, there's a way that you can reference. It's like, well, historically, this has been done like this and this and this, but really, it should just come down to like, what is fair? Is it fair that this producer, DJ, artist, whatever you want to call them, made $1 million from this track and the singer made $150 from that track? Like,
it's crazy.
That doesn't feel very fair.
Or and their name wasn't even credited too.
And their name wasn't even credited.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But I've also seen it go the other way where I don't know if you've seen these singers that actually make a living selling their Splice samples, selling like their, you know, vocal loops and whatnot. And then these artists will take them and put them in the song and do a collab with this singer without their consent or permission. So then it starts populating their Spotify with all of these like random tracks that they're like, no, that's not how this works. Like, I appreciate that you are including me in this and like, you know, citing me and giving me credit, but like I didn't sign off on this. This is not what I really want.
We're living in strange times. And it's
no, for real.
Crazier. It almost feels like you have to have someone's eyes on your project or your voice or your name all the time, because there's so much stuff that's out of your control that can pop up on the internet. And at a certain point, you just have to surrender and just be like, I can't micromanage everything. And
you know. Have you had any of those weird experiences where people may have like, I'm sure there must have been a bunch of remixes that have like come out with, you know, like that you didn't sign off on, or maybe that have used your voices. Now that there's like AI stem splitters these days, I'm sure there's people taking your voices and splitting and all. Like, have you experienced that? And if you have, like, how do you approach it?
I love when...
Go ahead.
I love when people want to take our music and remix it or make a bootleg. As far as like official releases, we actually haven't had any issues with people trying to make things an official release.
Yeah.
As far as I know, maybe our management team is just like sweeping that away and I don't even know about it.
Cleaning it up. No, I mean, we're starting to hear, and hopefully that never happens, where you open your Spotify one day and there's like 50 tracks that have nothing to do with you that you don't know about. Because that's also happened, is this like, we're living in these weird times where, you know, there's just like the AI bot music out there. It's just starting to flood every artist account and trying to do that, even if it sounds nothing like the artist. And it's crazy time. But, you know, artists that fortunately you've been around a minute, and so there's like history. And so I think some of the DSPs that artists have released a bit of music and have history have kind of, you know, there's more protections around their profiles than some are newer artists, I guess.
Yes.
But yeah, it's wild. So, I mean, I guess with creating in 2025 versus creating in, let's say, 2012, 13, 14, I mean, how has your process evolved in terms of just like how you work with the tools that are available now? Like, you know, there was no Splice back then. There was no AI back then. Now we have both. You know, we have like, are you using AI tools of any kind? And if so, like, how are you using them these days?
I tried Suno for the first time a month ago. It was the first AI tool that I'd ever used. And I wasn't really that interested in it. I played around with it for like 20 minutes and I'm like, I'm sure this is going to upgrade. Between now and the next year, it's going to look completely different. It's going to sound completely different. I didn't find anything super useful from it that I couldn't have done myself. But I know plenty of people who use it and I still consider them incredible musicians, and they're kind of just using it to fill in the blanks. I know that there's also AI technology in a lot of plugins that we use. So it's imprinted in ways that I'm not even paying attention to. So I mean, there's a Waves EQ plugin I think it's called Equator. Is it called? Yeah, I mean, the whole algorithm is AI that's helping you EQ your tracks. So, there's ways that I'm using AI that I'm probably not even clocking. But as far as Splice, it's so useful. I mean, you can take you can take one sample and create something completely new, and that's how I love to use it. So I think Splice is an incredible tool. I'm always using it. I think Jahan is too. Like we have a Splice pack. I want to make another Splice pack. I love Splice. I think Splice.
So you go
amazing.
both ways. You put your stuff up on Splice as packs, and then you use it.
Absolutely. Most definitely.
That's great. Yeah.
We sample ourselves often.
You what? You splice yourself often?
We sample ourselves often.
Sample yourself.
I literally use our Splice samples all the time.
Oh, that's dope. What Splice samples do you have out there?
There's a lot of vocal chops. There's
Okay.
some like ambient pad stuff. I think in the
Cool.
future, when we make our next Splice sample pack, I want to go even deeper into the pad world, like making vocal pads. Because, I mean, we're vocalists and producers. We can do so
Yeah.
much with both. So I want to
Right.
go even further into that. It's so much fun for us.
Yeah. In terms of like lyric writing, have you experimented with ChatGPT or anything like that to help you write lyrics?
No.
No,
Okay.
I'm scared. So sometimes I'll have this, like, if I'm running into a block where I'm like, I can't figure out the rhyme. I want this to rhyme, and I want to be a synonym of whatever this word is, the cosmos. I don't know.
Right.
I'll get that little like temptation, but I know the trap of it too. But it's crazy though, because if I Google what's a synonym of this word, Google now has AI interfaced, so it's unavoidable. It's unavoidable. Yep. But I also see the trap of it, and I'm one of those people who's so afraid of depending on things, whether it's like substances or technology, where I really want to continue sharpening my own ability, my mental abilities and my spiritual abilities to be able to like allow space for these words or melodies. Not like ChatGPT can come up with melodies, or maybe it can.
It can.
Rock. Okay.
Yeah, now.
Yeah. But yeah, I think I noticed that when I think about like urgency culture or capitalism, it's the need to like quickly produce something, or quickly write something. And I think we're kind of like, we need to remember that like it's okay to leave space. So it's like the other day I was trying to work on a second verse for one of our songs, and I got halfway through it and I noticed the frustration where I was like, I wanted to do it within these 2 hours, and just being okay with like, okay, I can't fill in those words right now, and I can come back to it 5 days from now or a week from now, or with Yasmine, and she can fill in the blanks for me. And like being okay with not having the answers or not being able to fill in the blanks sometime, and trusting that it'll come when it's time. And that's how music making is such a spiritual practice in that way. And I think sometimes when we just jump to getting all the answers right away, we're losing our ability, our endurance, our ability to like be with a slower whatever that means, a creative process.
No, that's so important. I love the spiritual component of music is not discussed enough, especially because there is that pressure for immediacy and consistency and putting stuff out so quickly that getting caught up in that rat race, there are those pressures that you feel you need to speed it up yourself. And so what are the crutches that I can use to help me achieve that goal of being quicker? And all of these tools, they make it so much easier. Whereas like maybe we started with Rhyme Zone, where it's like, let me find the rhyme. Yay, Rhyme Zone. I fucking love Rhyme Zone. Yeah, I know. So it's like, okay, we started with Rhyme Zone. It's just like very innocent. Let me help with the rhyme. I couldn't find it in my brain, but let me just have a tool. That's a tool, But now we're coming to the point of Suno where you just like type in a prompt and boom, a song is done.
Whoa, what's that?
And we're like, okay, there is like somewhere in between that we're all going to live. And there is no spiritual component, at least in my opinion, to typing in a prompt to Suno and hit go and whatever and pumping it out a track like that. Yeah. But also it's like, I totally feel you on Jahan on the trappings of like, maybe you turn to ChatGPT or whatever to like help you write a lyric. It's like, wow, that was easy. And then you like now are depending on it. It's like, oh, wow, it wrote it better than I ever could have or whatever. And then you start to think like, well, what does better mean? Wait, is it better? But it's not me. It's the robot that wrote that lyric. Oh, shit. Like, am I fusing myself with a robot? So it's like, it's all of this, crazy, like, the situation we're in right now is just like, where do you draw the line of like what feels right and the spiritual component of creating? Because like, the other day I was writing something and I was like, man, I should just go to ChatGPT and like, this is going to be so much easier if it and then I like stopped myself. I was like, wait, no. Like there is humanity in going through the process and of actually the exercise, the process of writing. And it's refreshing to hear, Jahan, that you are intentional about that and understand that it is a trap, and that you're pumping the brakes a little bit, because not everyone is.
I think I ask myself this question often: then what? Then what? Okay, if a song is that easy to write, then what? It's like gosh, I don't know why I'm relating this to Botox. And by the way, I'm going to say this with no judgment towards anyone who uses it. Everyone has their own thing that they're trying to do to make themselves feel better and feel more confident in the world. But I often, as I'm 36 years old, I see the lines coming in, and I ask myself these questions of like, if only I can just flatten this a little. And then I ask, then what? Then what? Something else is going to creep in. I'm a part of nature. I'm like a tree. Lines will keep forming. Things will keep drooping. And I guess that applies to music too, where it's like, if I can churn this album out or if we can churn this album out quicker than our natural process of it, because we're using all these external things to like speed up that process, then what? Then there's going to be the next album that we have to speed up even more. It's just, we keep talking about, you're bringing up the phrase rat race. It's just this, and things are speeding up more. There's more content. There's more competition to put out music in a quicker, shorter amount of time. So I think Yasmine are just like observing that, and we're like, okay, how do we like really like slow things down and just notice how quick or how easy it is to fall into that trap?
Yeah, I mean, there must be those pressures, because all the streaming services, namely Spotify, do say that you can help the algorithm if you release consistently. And so many artists have changed their release process to try to influence that algorithm and win the algorithm over. And so they're now feeling the pressure to release regularly. Every few weeks they're putting out a song or something like that. But it is a losing game, because AI, the machinery, can do it a million times faster than any human can. And they're already flooding the DSPs. I mean, Deezer just came out with a report that said around 20% of all the music being uploaded to the DSPs right now is AI generated, generative AI. So we're talking like 20,000 songs every single day flooding the DSPs. That's all AI, like Suno and Udio created. So it's like, we can't compete with that. I mean, that's just, and some of this, it's nearly indistinguishable from human-made music. We're like getting to that point. It's soulless, that's for sure. And like listening to it and then knowing, like if it's in the background, you're like, oh, okay, you can't really tell. But I think any trained ear listening to it can tell, but we won't be able to tell in a year. It's just getting better. And so like, knowing all of that and having that as the backdrop, like, how are you thinking about this next era of your career, of the music industry, with the realities of AI and all of this that's going on, and maintaining the spirituality, the humanity, and understanding like what is most important to your career and creation process and all of that?
I think first of all, I'm somewhat in denial, where I'm like, it's not going to affect us. It will. It'll affect all of us. I'm just not letting it penetrate me that way yet, because I'm trying not to live in fear, and I'm just trying to create from a place of excitement and abundance, not scarcity and fear. But I do think that Jahan and I have this thing about us that we are going to do what feels good for us always, even if it's not the thing that's going to succeed the most or be the loudest. And I think we've always kind of been the same in that sense, that AI is not, I'm not really interested in making AI music or being a part of that wave. I'm not judging anyone else for doing it. It's just not something that feels interesting for me. It takes away my complete artist autonomy. I love that about my life. Why would I want to remove that? And so we're just going to keep doing what we do while everyone else does what they do. And hope for the best. I know that sounds so blasé. I really just mean that, like, I have no choice but to create. Jahan has no choice but to create. We are inherently artists. It is like the lifeblood of half of the reason why I exist is because I get to do this. And so I'm not really interested in doing it with the help of AI.
Yeah. That's great. And that's wonderful to stay pure and stay true, because we have to. Artists, like, that's the last thing, is just like maintaining the humanity and the artistry. And there is something to art that is, I would like to believe that AI will never be able to achieve, because it is so human, and it does come from it comes from lived experience and the soul of a human. And also, like, performing live, like, people are coming and they're seeing the two of you up there performing live and having that connection. And I'm curious your thoughts, and this goes off in a slightly different direction, but when it comes to performing, and you said you have done a little weaving and an evolution where you performed with the band and you perform, and you see other genres and other performances where it is like a fully organic show where there's not even a laptop on stage or tracks of any kind. And then the other end of the extreme, where it's like a DJ who doesn't sing, kind of, and maybe doesn't have all the technical skills necessarily, and by all means, intents and purposes, hitting spacebar. Like, with crafting performances and being in this space now for so long, what do you feel is like the most impactful part of performing for you, and where you exist in the landscape of live music?
Okay, so we're fresh off of our European tour. So we played Medusa Festival in Spain, Midstream Sound in London, which is a legendary nightclub, and Boothouse in Köln, if I'm pronouncing that right. When I see like the energy at our shows, especially in nightclubs where it's just like the low ceilings, a smaller room, and you're very close to fans. And when I think about EDM, like bass music and drum and bass, it feels to me like a healthy release of like so many pent up emotions that people have, and a safe space for people to rage. And I used to think about, like, when I used to think about our music, I used to say, like, oh, I don't want our shows to be an escape. I don't want us to be a part of escapism. But I see it differently now, where our live experience, our shows, and by the way, right now we're DJing, we're not doing anything live right now. That might be in the future. But even with DJ sets, the world is there's so much like pain in the world, and I feel like everyone feels like the world is getting darker, and it's, especially in the States, it's about to get weirder, and who knows what's happening. And in people's home lives too, within their personal lives, people experience just so much grief and pain, and knowing that our shows can be an escape for people to just experience so much joy. I sometimes forget that we are part of people's best nights ever. And when people have said that before, and I've been on the receiving end of that, me being in a crowd for someone else's show. I don't know if that answers your question, but I think
it's a beautiful answer. No, I love that. Yeah.
This container is a safe place, as much as people are like raging and moshing sometimes, but it's what I would love for our fans to feel is that they can be completely their authentic selves. And whether it's them just standing in a corner and watching everyone, or people in, a dance circle, or moving their bodies in a way, or like experimenting with like their self-expression in the crowd. I would love for our shows to be like I keep saying the word safe space for people to explore that.
I love that. And I do want to ask you about safety and the safe space, because at environments like concerts, like live, raves or whatever, just like when safety can be an issue, how do you make sure that your live experiences, your sets, your shows are safe spaces?
I would say it's first of all, it starts with us. Like our energy, like I would say 99% of the shows Yasmine and I are sober. Once in a while, maybe New Year's we'll have a glass of champagne or, once in a while. We really, and I take pride in that. I know it didn't start like that when we first started playing these underground shows and underground raves. I was so excited about the partying aspect. And I think it was Columbia signing us that really woke me up, where I was like, okay, this is real. Like I need to care for my body and care for my mental health. So I think on an energetic level, I feel like I'm giving so much to our fans, where I'm present and I'm taking care of myself. I feel so alert during our shows, and it's very empowering. Like I feel like I'm scanning the whole crowd and watching the crowd. And obviously it's not our job to break up a fight if there's something happening in a corner. If we were to see that, we'd stop the music, and we've done that before. So I guess I don't know if that's a very, like clear answer to your question, but like energetically, like the containers we have for our shows, like knowing that Yasmine and I are like taking care of ourselves the best we can to give that energy to our fans at our shows. Yasmine, I would love you to continue.
Yeah, I love that answer, because I do think that we are very alert and we're paying attention, and people also know that there's a level of care that is involved in us playing shows. We're going to work. Like that's what we see it as, first and foremost. It's also like the most fun job ever, but it's still work for us. Yeah. I also think if you've been a fan of us for a long time, or even more recently, there's just a vibe I think we've given off over the years that we don't condone violence. We don't condone hatred. Like there's a very clear energy that we give off. And so if you're coming to a Krewella show, it's probably because you like our music or us, and you probably feel aligned with that in some way. I can't say the same about festivals, because that's a huge lineup and we're just a drop in the ocean on that. But I really do think people know us for our music first and foremost, but then also who we're trying to be as people, as humans. So I hope energetically, this is just me hoping and assuming, like really truly having faith in that, but I really hope that people feel that from us.
I think we attract a lot of sensitive people because we are sensitive. And I think when you're sensitive, you can feel that from people. You really can. You're not talking to them, even if they're like conducting the music and the experience, you can feel people's energy. And I also, going back to like the drugs or substances, I know that this is inherently a part of EDM culture and rave culture, is people experimenting with substances. So I never want anyone to feel like we're judging them or policing them. I would just hope that people are testing their stuff. They're with people who trust them, sober people who are going to look out for them. Because we've heard, throughout the decade plus of touring, horror stories of people being abandoned or left behind, being dehydrated. So I'd hope that people have someone who's just really deeply caring about them and being present with them in that experience. And knowing that like when your mind is in these expanded states, like your heart is so open, but you're also vulnerable. So I think that's so important to have trusted people with you. And I think that I would really encourage fans, like I go to shows alone a lot of the time, and it's a spiritual experience being sober at a show alone. It really is. It's challenging and uncomfortable and awkward at times, but if you can like move through those emotions and just be like, wow, I'm having a solo experience, but I'm in a sea of people, so I'm not alone. And I love it when we have fans that say like, oh, I just did a road trip, drove 8 hours here and I'm alone. And I admire and I look up to fans who do that. They've actually inspired me to like take myself on solo adventures and see concerts on my own.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that. Well, Jahan, Yasmine, thank you so much for chatting with me. I really appreciate kind of being so open and transparent about everything. I have one final question that I ask everyone who comes on the show, and that is, what does it mean to you to make it in the new music business?
Oh. Jahan, if you think of something first, dive in. That's such a loaded question.
Yeah.
It is. We've said the word privilege a lot, but I think we're just very aware that this is a privilege to be able to sustain our lives, to have a career that's based in us playing. And that's not to say there isn't agony related to the creative process, but I just feel a lot of gratitude that this is my life path. that I get to do this with my sister, that we get to grow with each other in this, and then we get to call it our business and our career as well.
Yeah, I think on a like tangible real world place, I feel like making it is being able to support the life that you deem quality for you and your loved ones by what you create. Like that is making it. It doesn't have to be beyond your means, but like just being able to, even if it's just the right at the bar of being able to support what is a quality life for you and your loved ones. That's the dream.
Yasmine, Jahan, thank you so much. That was great.
Thank you, Ari.
Thank you, Ari.
This episode was edited by Peter Schrupp with music by Brassroots District and produced by all the great people at Ari's Take.